Who's
I'm
here?
here.
Are you there, man?
I am here, loud and clear. I'm
Hey,
here.
Matt.
Hi, Denise. Hi,
Virtual
everybody. How are you?
hugs.
All the
And
way
all
from
my
that
love
little
for
tiny town of where?
Stockholm, Sweden,
Uh,
where they're trying this Corona experiment, where everybody's more or less going out in the streets and having dinner at restaurants.
oh, good.
Yep. There's always something positive with the bad things.
Now, do you have to pass some sort of a health a ticket? Do you get a red letter if you're totally clear, a blue letter if you're maybe 50%, different things like that?
Unfortunately, not. We're not the Matrix yet, but with the red and blue pill.
Yeah.
But we're standing in line, having social distances, and everybody's washing their hands as they should. And the restaurants are separating the tables a lot, but it's down pretty hard, but it's better than it's other places.
And what I find out here is back in California, United States, once they open things back up and I'm in a restaurant and somebody nearby coughs, I will put them in a headlock, drag them out to the sidewalk and beat the holy crap out of them. Because social distancing starts with personal responsibility as well. If you don't feel well, stay home.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
thank you, Matt, for joining us. I did a brief introduction, and if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit more of your experience in the hemp CBD industry, that would be wonderful.
I lost you here, but can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah, we lost your camera, but let me see if I can turn it back on.
Are you there?
There you are.
I think I lost you for a couple of seconds. Can you hear me?
Now you're back. Yes.
Good. So, a brief introduction. I'm a DC chiropractor out of Stockholm. I've been working for that for about 13 years, I think. And I do a lot of sports chiropractic and a lot of CEOs and similar stuff. I help out starting up chiropractic clinics, and on top of that, I run my martial arts school. I'm a Hall of Famer in the martial arts, and on top of that, I have a small CBD company that are wholesaling and sell CBD products from Europe, out of Poland, due to legislation in Sweden. So we can't do it from Sweden, unfortunately. That's it's into the medical system, the CBD here. So it's pharma grade, and everybody calls it a medical device. So we're the only one in Europe that has that, and we have a 0 THC tolerance at all products here. So you can purchase CBD products in Sweden, but you can't sell them in Sweden, which is a strange thing. So that's roughly what I am. I'm based in Stockholm, as I told you before, and we're having a fantastic Easter Eve here right now on the Canna World Expo. That's how we celebrate it here.
What time is it in Sweden right now?
Unfortunately, I can't hear a single word you say, Denise. For some strange reason, I'll try to unplug my headphone and see if it works. Can you hear me?
Okay, can you hear me now?
I totally lost everyone on the sound here. No, here we go.
What time is it in Sweden?
It's 7 p.m. So I'm having my afternoon cigar and had my late lunch and enjoying the time here, having a blast.
That's fantastic. So what have you seen in the world when it comes to CBD, when it comes to cannabis in Europe? How different is it in Europe from the United States?
I think we're about 2 years behind you in overall. It's exploding in some countries like UK and Switzerland and Italy and countries like that, Spain as well. Unfortunately, the legislation differs, and there are some new laws coming up, and nobody knows how that will turn out. for the sales of the cannabis world or the CBD products. But it's a huge demand here, and we're having a hard time to cope with getting supplies. It's more or less EU GMP for all the products that are selling, but on occasion they are not EU GMP, but most are EU GMP certified products.
So are you saying that there's no little medi shop down the street you could just, I feel like a couple of big doobies and run down and get them? No place to go there? Where in your hometown, Stockholm?
No, not at all. You're not even allowed to have a web shop set up from Sweden. So you can't have that at all here. So we are based out of Poland instead. So all countries more or less all countries except Sweden is okay with CBD product or cannabis product. So we're just...
The movement is on to get that turned around there, I hope.
We want to. The little man wants to, but the government doesn't want to. It's big pharma coming on to us here as well. So I think they want to have their piece of the pie. So that's what I think will go on, and it's probably going to happen like in Germany, where most of it's sold through pharmacists and similar.
Very important. Snowden getting a call from DoorDash. They're out front with their steak dinner. And you mentioned a piece of the pie. Speaking of piece of the pie, I'll be right back. Hold that thought.
Yep.
So, Matt, what types of products are you seeing out there in Europe, and what types of products need to be developed for consumers?
The development for the consumers, I think it's the non-soluble will come on pretty hard. But right now, it's a lot of smokables, vape oils, and sublinguals for the main purchase, and it's still buds biomass that are the big ones here, and isolate that are turning more or less quickly here. The thing with Europe is that, as I told you before, we're about 2-3 years behind you. So all the cowboys that had no clue what they're doing are out there. And so it's a lot of middleman to middleman to middleman to middleman. So we're trying to get rid of that. And hopefully some positive things out of this corona will wipe those guys out. So we can have like a structured go-to line, like lab, farm, wholesaler, customer, done. But it's going to take its time until that is totally implemented here in Europe. But it's getting better and better by the day. But more or less, the whole Europe shut down during this corona thing. We got the first request actually late last night for the first one for 4 weeks. So it's been a long quiet time here.
Wow, it sounds like it's coming up on crunch time. I mean it. It's crunch time. Just like my favorite candy bar. It's part of my dessert. That's the way we'll do it. Anyway, interesting facts out there, and I'm glad that at least you're, beginning the movement to get those knuckleheads in the big offices to wake up and smell the coffee, which I do, by the way. But to get things going and moving forward, because that's my bucket list destination. And when I get there, I want to puff a little flower right there on the streets of Stockholm. Make it so.
Well, I will do my utterly best to help you out with that one. Otherwise, we'll meet up somewhere in Holland. That would be...
absolutely.
So, but it's like you had it before. It's a lot of things going on, and the market is exploding as everywhere else. Yep. And there's a lot of new farms coming up, and it takes time to vet all those farms, and so everybody's legit today. But it's getting better and better, and the supply is coming in from both from Brazil, South Africa, US, and even other Bahamas and stuff like that, countries like that. So it's getting better and better. The supply is getting better quality wise. So it's good. It's starting to get really, really good here. Wow. But we're not as far along as you guys over in the US.
Well, we are certainly laying down the path. Does it help? Does it help you to see how the U.S. has navigated these oceans in other countries?
Absolutely. We are very appreciative. I work with companies over in the US as well, so we can have the international transactions as well, because there's a lot of demand for it. We just need to make sure all the lines come through. Because as you all know, where we're talking wholesale and larger deals, so to say, or the big distribution, it's a lot of chains that they want an unreasonable amount of profit for unreasonable little work.
Right.
And that's where you guys have been trailblazers, so we don't have to. So we just copycat you guys over there and try to do the same over here.
Happy to help. Anything we can do here to help our good friends over there.
We're thankful for that.
There's actually a question from one of the participants asking about hemp, the hemp industry beyond the medical CBD side in Sweden. How is that going for industrial purposes?
It doesn't. in Sweden, it doesn't at all. Most people are buying from abroad, and since the new legislation last year, there's zero tolerance on THC, so you can't even have 0.001 amount of THC in it, and the customs are really hard. But on occasions, it goes through the customs, even with the amount of 0.2 compared to 0.3 in US. So it's a hard one for Sweden, but our main goal is to work in Sweden, since that's a super small market. We're a population of 10 million people. That's a town in US, or a fairly big town in most of Europe, but it's such a spread out population, and it's not worth the hassle to go after that market. It's much better to focus on the countries that are okay with the legislation and has a population that actually appreciates the product and knows a little bit more about it. And since you're having the guy over there later on today talking about how to market it, it's going to be beneficial for all European both producers and sellers and consumers as well, to find the product at reliable sources, so that they don't get crap out of countries that are producing non-standard products, or not up to par with quality. And as Dino talked about last week, the CEO has to be on the websites and all that, so people actually know what they're buying, so they don't buy crap from beginning.
I wish they'd do more of that here in the US as well. Transparency is lacking in our pharmaceutical industry. You know, you can get a COA for a cannabis product, but try getting a COA for a drug that was made in China that is highly addictive and kills millions of people. You know,
it's a tough one. But from our merchants account supplier, they are more or less demanding that we are having the CEOs on the website. So that goes for more or less most of the companies. So you can download the COA for each and every product you buy here in Europe, which I think is fantastic, because then the consumer can feel a little bit safer on what they're actually buying. And the cool and good part is that distribution from the wholesaler to the buyers, or the producers, or to the end users, that is that flows really well here in the Europe. So that's with the trade embargo, non-trade embargo, so we don't have to pay taxes buying in international, as long as it's in the EU, which will be very interesting to see how UK handles that one when that how that will affect them. But that UK is the largest market right now for CBD products here.
So we had a question from South Africa. How do you feel that other countries will play a role with supplying for the demand in Europe?
I think that's fantastic. Can you imagine having a country like South Africa, perfect climate for growing, as long as everything is good for the workers, good for the environment, good for the product, and on top of that, if they sell the flowers, they can utilize the rest of the plant for having in stables and stuff like that, or produce clothing or whatever. It's a fantastic product in that sense. So you don't need to have any waste of it, and as long as the companies that are producing are if we're talking about Europe, it's great as long as it's EU GMP certified, which is usually 3-4 months process, but I don't know how long it takes right now with the Corona thing. But in general, it's just a couple of months process. And do they have the process together and the quality up? I'm all game for it, because it's a small world. We need to utilize all the production that is there, and I think it's going to grow even more when you find other uses than just for the human. We already have clothing, but you've seen it in cars and airplanes and stuff like that. It's going to explode in all different markets.
Well, one of the things as well is regulations. The country is going to have to have its own regulations, approvals, what's going to work for them, and also put stuff in a fair playing field for everyone as well, so that everyone benefits from a market like this.
I totally agree.
You want to show them your?
I think it's going to be streamline the regulations both for US and Europe, because it's such an interconnected market, and that goes even for South America. From like Brazil, they're starting their productions pretty heavily right now, and as we said, South Africa has huge farms coming on right now. So it's going to be, and most farms. Sorry for jumping in between it, but most farms in South Africa that I know about or have contact with, they are going for the EU GMP to have that certified standard, so they can export to Europe, they can export to Australia, which is a big market as well. But the questions we get is from Australia is all EU GMP certified products, because then they know it's you can track it in Udra, and you can see it, the whole line is totally transparent, and it's great quality of the product. So I think if US and Europe can find a way to streamline those regulations, that would be fantastic for both the producers and the consumers.
Well, last year, the World Health Organization actually put out some guidelines for cannabis as certain countries are coming on board with legalization. And I think that a lot of the bans on any form of cannabis came, it followed the United States lead with a lot of drug treaties and this huge war on drug, which has impacted just about every country on the globe. And I think as more and more states legalize, and eventually, not a matter of if but when, the U.S. government takes cannabis out of Schedule I altogether, I think the rest of the world will start to follow suit. A lot of those treaties will fall apart, and then we can start to have some consistency across these country borders. But
absolutely,
absolutely, it's been a challenge though for people who work on a global scale to try to get their products out to the world, because in Sweden, if it has THC, forget it. But otherwise, there are a lot of countries that are coming on board and sharing what they're able to grow.
Absolutely, and Sweden it's a huge country by acres, but it's a small country by population. So we're mainly focusing on Europe as a whole, because it's where the most population are, and more or less all the other countries are up to par with the with the more or less same regulations that they have in US, but we have a little less THC levels in ours. It's 0.1 less than you got, so it's getting there in the right direction. And just the hardest part, I think, for both for the US and for Europe is that how you can marketing the product without getting banned from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Google, and stuff like that. That's the toughest one we all have to battle.
Don't even get me started on it. I mean, even people who don't have products are getting banned just for mentioning the word cannabis.
Yeah, so it's tough. So I think that's the hardest part for startup companies and for medium-sized CBD companies or cannabis companies, or just so they can actually find the customer can actually find the products they're looking for.
Right.
Yeah.
Like consistent products tested and manufactured in the same way each and every time. Just like when you get Jack Daniels in Tennessee or in Glasgow, you're getting the same Jack Daniels.
Same.
You want to have that consistency through the congruency, if you will, through the entire product line. Another factor that by not nationalizing cannabis to be approved again here in the United States, you're basically setting up a money laundering system for anybody dealing in the cannabis industry, because your checks can't go into an FDIC insured bank because they're not federally approved. It's a mess, and we've really got to keep moving forward with this and bring the whole world along. As the United States is out in front, trying to, as you mentioned, get this drug reduced out of the Schedule 1 or Sector 1, whatever the hell it is. They made a mistake a few years ago. Time to correct it. But the importance, do you feel that it's being lowered as far as politically the cannabis industry? Now we have the pandemic, and now we've got other issues.
Pandemic.
Certainly going above that. So either one of you feel that perhaps cannabis interests and the legal aspects of things are being pushed lower down the list on the priorities of politicians?
Hopefully, on good and bad, because there's a lot of war against the drugs in general, which I'm totally for. But it's gonna, since it has the same name, as long as it says cannabis, we're gonna have a hill to climb, and that's the hard part. And I know a lot of lawyers here, they can't have CBD products because of the cannabis flower back home. If somebody opens up their cabinet in the bathroom and there's a bottle with the cannabis flower on. So I think there's a lot of changes that has to happen to get away from, even though it is a cannabis flower and you have all the great benefits, but in the long run, I think we need to move forward to other ways to market the product and the benefits. But that's a big topic, and I'm not the one who's going to start that one. I'm just into the selling and wholesaling distribution chain here. That's where I'm good at, and the politicians and people that are better with words than I am and better with the legal part should take care of the other part.
I also want to just chip in with something real quick, if I may, because I know from a lot of what I do as an investor, and I work with a lot of finance, the entire industry, again, being the problems in this space, the problems of perception, the problems of branding, the problems of regulation, and who's got the money and where is the money being made. From the finance side, it's really hard for any of us to lend money to anyone in this space because of the bad elements, the bad actors, the big pharma and everything else that's kind of squashing all of the independents. It's really, from the finance side, a mess. We won't touch a lot of it. CBD is kind of okay, but anything that trips over either side. I mean, I work with a lot of private equity, and yeah, as soon as the word cannabis comes in, it's like, bump, no, we don't care how good your numbers are, we ain't touching it. And I mean, that, again, if we can get to that point of where public perception, which also the money perception, which are two different angles, that drives that people perception will drive the money perception. That has to happen, I think, a lot before the deregulation, which we're seeing state by state being more and more influenced. But I think from the federal level, certainly over here, because we are leading the way, once we get that legitimized, more legitimate fronting and honestly, a lot of self-regulation in the industry to get rid of the bad actors and those that tarnish the space. Once, I'll tell you right now, regulation will follow when the money can flow from private equity and investment. That will push federal regulation or deregulation, because it's the money that talks and makes everything happen.
Yeah, the Safe Banking Act was supposed to take care of a lot of that, and unfortunately, banks are still shutting down cannabis industry here in the States. But Mats, how is that in Sweden? Is it working? Are you able to conduct your banking?
We do everything out of Poland, because that's no problem whatsoever over there. So we got our company there, we got our bank over there, we got merchants account from another supplier in Europe. So that has not been an issue whatsoever. When we went into the bank and said, okay, we want to open up a bank account, we're going to have transaction from CBD products, and they just said, okay, here's a bunch of papers, signed, done. So that took about 30 minutes to do.
Yeah.
So
wow.
That's a total different thing compared to the US. So the countries that has legalized it, there's no issue whatsoever there. But they're very keen on getting the merchant's account. They are extremely keen on that. You have actual physical addresses and being an actual real company. So you're not a mailbox company that is generating money from whatever. Yeah. So they actually can see all the transactions. So everything has to be super transparent. You have to have your audit company signed in to get the merchant's account. I assume that's roughly the same thing over in the US, but the banking has been no problem whatsoever here.
Yeah.
At least not for us.
Well, very nice to meet you virtually.
Thank you.
Mats will be back in about an hour. Thank you very much for participating in the Pro Sports Chalk Talk on pain management and being a Hall of Fame martial artist and also an instructor in martial arts. I'm sure you know a thing or two about pain.
Both inflicting it and just getting. So we're going to have a blast to talk about that as well. Thank you so much. Okay. Fantastic hour, and I'll be listening in.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
So at this time, we'd like to switch over to Ashley Couch and to Molly Palmer. We're going to switch them over to presenter. Oops, I think I just switched myself right out of the presentation. Hold on. Oh, there we're back.
You're still there.
Hi, thanks. So technology is great. We're very happy to have two legal eagles join us, and their talk is going to be about legal in the cannabis industry, what's changed, what they're seeing as far as industry trends, as well as social justice, because as the laws change, it applies to us individuals as well as those who are in professional sports. And the professional sports panel will be able to take that conversation a little bit further.